Commander Jake Thompson stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, watching the massive space station grow larger on the view screen. The Galactic Council station was huge beyond anything he had ever seen. It looked like a metal city floating in space, with thousands of ships coming and going from its many docking bays. "First time seeing something like this, Commander," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her seat at the navigation controls. Her voice carried a mix of wonder and nervousness. Jake nodded slowly. "First time for all of us, Amy. First time for humanity." The Harmony was not the biggest ship in human space, but it was one of the newest. Built specifically for this mission, it carried the hopes of Earth and all human colonies. Today, humanity would officially meet the galaxy. Incoming. Transmission from the station reported. Communications Officer Ben Clark. "They want us to dock at Bay 94. Seems like they put us pretty far from the main areas." Jake smiled grimly. He expected this. The galaxy did not think much of humans yet. They were the newcomers, the primitives who had barely left their home system 100 years ago. Most species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. "Take us in, Amy, nice and easy." As the Harmony moved toward the docking bay, Jake thought about the briefings he had received back on Earth. The galaxy was a complicated place. There were hundreds of different species, each with their own governments and customs. Some were peaceful traders, others were warriors, and many were somewhere in between. The most important thing the diplomats had told him was simple: do not make enemies on the first day. The docking process went smoothly. Jake gathered his small diplomatic team in the airlock. Besides Amy and Ben, he had brought Dr. Susan Mills as a science advisor and Sergeant First Class Tom Bradley for security. Earth had wanted to send a bigger team, but the Council had limited each new species to 5 representatives. "Remember everyone," Jake said as they prepared to enter the station. "We represent all of humanity today. Be polite, be respectful, but do not let anyone push us around." The airlock opened, and they stepped into a world unlike anything on Earth. The corridor was filled with beings Jake had only seen in briefing videos. Tall, thin creatures with blue skin walked alongside short, furry things that looked almost like walking carpets. Some aliens floated in the air using technology Jake could not understand, while others moved on more legs than he could count. Their escort was a being called a Valari. It looked somewhat like a large gray lizard that walked on 2 legs. Its name was Thesh, and it seemed friendly enough. "Welcome to the Council Station," Thesh said in accented but clear English. "I am honored to guide the first human delegation. We have prepared quarters for you in Section 7. Jake noticed that Section 7 was marked as new species housing, another reminder that humans were at the bottom of the galactic food chain. As they walked through the station, Jake observed everything. The technology was impressive but not impossible to understand. The aliens seemed curious about humans but not afraid. Some looked at them with what might have been amusement. "Tell me, Thesh," Jake said as they walked, "what do most species think about humans joining the Council?" Thesh's head tilted in a way that might have been embarrassment. "Many believe humans are too young, too aggressive. Your species has a reputation for violence. And what do you believe?" "I think every species deserves a chance to prove themselves." They reached the human quarters, which were small but comfortable. Thesh left them to settle in, promising to return in 2 hours to escort them to their first council session. Jake called a quick team meeting. "First impressions?" he asked. Dr. Mills spoke first. "The technology level is about what we expected. Advanced but not magical. We can compete," Ben added. "The communication systems are impressive. They have real-time translation for hundreds of languages." "Security-wise," Tom said, "this place is designed for cooperation, not conflict. I see safety measures but not military defenses." Amy had been quiet, but now she spoke. "Commander, I think they are testing us. That escort route took us through the most crowded areas of the station. Everyone was looking at us," Jake nodded. "Good observations, all of you. Remember, we are not just here to join the Council. We are here to show them what humans can offer." 2 hours later, Thesh returned and led them to the Council chamber. It was enormous, with seating for thousands of delegates. Jake could see representatives from dozens of species, all watching as the humans entered. Their seats were in the back, naturally. The session began with routine business. Jake listened as various species discussed trade agreements, border disputes, and research projects. It was surprisingly boring, like watching a very large city council meeting. Then came the moment he had been waiting for. "We now welcome the human delegation," announced the council speaker, a tall being with 4 arms and golden skin. "Commander Thompson, please present your species' request for council membership." Jake stood and walked to the speaking platform. He looked out at the sea of alien faces, all watching him with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. "Honored delegates," he began, "I am Commander Jake Thompson, representing the United Earth Government and all human colonies. We come before you not as conquerors or supplicants, but as potential partners." A ripple of what might have been amusement went through the chamber. "We know we are young compared to your great civilizations. We know we have much to learn. But we also have much to offer. Humans are adaptable, determined, and loyal to our friends." From somewhere in the middle of the chamber, a loud voice interrupted him. "Loyal?" The voice belonged to a massive creature covered in dark scales. Jake recognized it from his briefings as a Drachnor, one of the galaxy's major military powers. "Your species fights wars against itself. You poison your own planet. You call this loyalty?" The creature stood up, revealing its full imposing size. This was General Craxus, the Drachnor military commander. "You are emotional creatures," Craxus continued, "driven by feelings rather than logic. You are weak, and weakness has no place in this galaxy." The chamber fell silent. Jake felt his team tense behind him, but he remained calm. "General Craxus," Jake said quietly, "you are correct that humans are emotional. We feel deeply about the things that matter to us, but I would not mistake emotion for weakness." Jake paused, making sure every being in the chamber could hear him clearly. "We come from a world where we had to fight for everything. Every day was a struggle for survival. We learned to work together because we had no choice. We learned to never give up because giving up meant death." Jake looked directly at Craxus. "We hope to find friends among the stars. We will be the most loyal allies you could ever have. But we come from a world where we fought predators 10 times our size and won. We fought diseases that killed millions and beat them. We fought each other for thousands of years and learned to make peace." The chamber was completely quiet now. "We seek peace, General. But we come from a species that knows how to fight when we have to." Jake returned to his seat, leaving the chamber in thoughtful silence. Later, as they walked back to their quarters, Thesh spoke quietly to Jake. "That was well said, Commander. Many delegates will remember those words." Jake nodded. "I hope they remember the right parts. The Drachnor respect strength above all else," Thesh said. "But they often mistake kindness for weakness. That is a dangerous mistake to make with any species." As they reached the human quarters, alarms began sounding throughout the station. "Emergency alert," came the announcement. "Pirate attack on Valari mining colony Kepler 7. All available ships requested for rescue assistance." Jake looked at his team, then at Thesh. "How far to Kepler 7? Jake asked. 6 hours at maximum speed," Thesh replied, his voice heavy with worry. "But the council ships are all committed to other missions. The colony is doomed." Jake was already moving toward the docking bay. "Amy, get the Harmony ready for immediate departure. Ben, contact Earth Command and tell them we are responding to a distress call. Tom, check our weapons systems. Susan, I need everything you know about Valari biology in case we have wounded." "Commander," Thesh called after him, "the pirates have 3 heavy cruisers. Your ship is alone." Jake stopped and looked back at the Valari diplomat. "Thesh, those are your people on that colony, right?" "Yes, but then they are not alone. They have us." As the Harmony launched from the council station, racing toward a battle they might not survive, Jake thought about General Craxus and his words about human weakness. The Drachnor was about to learn his first lesson about humanity. When humans say they are loyal to their friends, they mean it. Even if those friends are 6 hours away, surrounded by pirates, and the humans have never met them before. 6 months had passed since the rescue of the Valari mining colony. Commander Jake Thompson had kept his word, and the Harmony had arrived just in time to drive off the pirates. No human lives were lost, but 3 Valari miners owed their lives to human medical supplies and Dr. Susan Mill's quick thinking. Now, far from the council station, Dr. Lisa Parker ran a small medical outpost on a world called Haven's Rest. It sat on the edge of civilized space, where refugees from dozens of species came seeking safety from the expanding Drachnor Empire. The outpost was not much to look at. 3 prefabricated buildings connected by covered walkways, surrounded by a basic energy fence. But to the refugees living in the camp beyond the fence, it was hope itself. Dr. Parker, we have another transport coming in, called Medic Tom Wilson from the communications room. 47 beings, mostly Cathera families. 2 critical injuries. Lisa wiped sweat from her forehead and looked out the window at the sprawling refugee camp. Hundreds of temporary shelters housed beings from 12 different species. All of them had one thing in common. They were running from the Draknor war machine. How long until they arrive? Lisa asked. 20 minutes, Tom replied. The pilot says one of the injured is losing blood fast. Lisa nodded and turned to Security Chief Mike Foster, who was checking the perimeter sensors. Mike, any word from the council about moving these people to safer worlds? Mike shook his head grimly. Same answer as always. They say the refugee situation is under review. Meanwhile, the Draknor keep pushing closer. Lisa had been running Haven's Rest for 4 months. She had come here with a simple mission: provide medical care to refugees while the council figured out a permanent solution. But the council moved slowly and the Draknor moved fast. Every day brought more refugees. Every day brought them closer to the Draknor front lines. The incoming transport landed in a cloud of dust. Lisa and Tom ran out to meet it, carrying medical supplies. The pilot was a young Valari who looked exhausted. Thank the void you are here, the pilot said as refugees began streaming out of his ship. The Draknor hit 3 colonies this week. These are the only ones who made it out. Lisa looked at the refugees and felt her heart break. Families carrying everything they owned in simple bags. Children clinging to parents who had lost everything. Elderly beings who might not survive another move. The 2 critical cases were a Cathera father, who had been shot while protecting his family, and a small child from a species Lisa did not recognize. Both needed surgery immediately. Tom, get them to surgery 1 and 2. I will take the father. You take the child. Mike helped the others get settled. For the next 6 hours, Lisa fought to save 2 lives while Tom worked to save a third. The Cathera father survived, but barely. The child was stable, but would need weeks of recovery. As Lisa cleaned up from surgery, Mike approached her with a worried expression. Doc, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up a large fleet heading this way. The signature matches Draknor warships. Lisa felt cold fear in her stomach. How long do we have? 12 hours, maybe 14. Lisa looked out at the refugee camp. Nearly 600 beings who had already lost everything. Many were too sick or injured to travel. Others were too old or too young for another dangerous journey. Start preparing the ships, Lisa said. We will evacuate as many as we can. Doc, Mike said quietly, we only have transport capacity for maybe 200. And that is if we pack them in like cargo. Lisa stared out at the camp for a long moment. Then she walked to the communications console and began composing a message. To any human ship within range of Haven's Rest. This is Dr. Lisa Parker, running Medical Station Alpha 7. We have 600 refugees of 12 species under imminent attack by Draknor forces. We need immediate evacuation assistance. Please respond. She sent the message on all human frequencies and waited. An hour later, the first response came. Dr. Parker, this is Captain David Roberts on the cargo ship New Boston. We are 40 hours out, but we are coming. Hold on. Then another. Haven's Rest, this is Captain Maria Santos on the UES Defiance. We are 18 hours away. Do not abandon those people. Then another, and another. Mike stared at the communications board as responses kept coming in. Doc, we have got 17 human ships responding. Some of them are changing course from important missions. Lisa smiled for the first time in days. That is what humans do, Mike. We do not leave people behind. But 18 hours was too long. The Draknor fleet would arrive first. At dawn, the Draknor ships appeared on the horizon like dark clouds. 3 massive cruisers and a dozen smaller attack ships. The lead cruiser broadcast a message that made Lisa's blood run cold. Attention, illegal refugee camp. You are harboring enemies of the Draknor Empire. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You have 1 hour. Lisa looked at Tom and Mike. Both men had the same determined expression she knew was on her own face. We are not surrendering, Lisa said. Doc, Mike said, we have got 6 plasma rifles and a prayer. They have enough firepower to turn this place into glass. Lisa walked to the communications console one more time. This is Dr. Lisa Parker at Haven's Rest Medical Station. We are caring for 600 refugees, including injured children and elderly beings. We are a medical facility under galactic humanitarian law. Any attack on this station is a war crime. The response came quickly. Dr. Parker, this is General Voss of the Draknor 3rd Fleet. Your facility is harboring fugitives. Prepare for immediate inspection and deportation of all refugees. Lisa took a deep breath. General Voss, these people are under human protection. I suggest you reconsider your course of action. Laughter came through the communication channel. Human protection? There are 3 of you, and 1,500 of us. Stand down or be removed. Lisa looked at her 2 friends, then at the refugee camp beyond the fence. Families were gathering their few possessions. Preparing for the worst, General Voss, Lisa said calmly. You have 30 minutes to withdraw from this system before you find out exactly what human protection means. More laughter. Or what, human? Before Lisa could answer, new contacts appeared on the sensor screen. Lots of them. Haven's Rest, this is Admiral Patricia Williams, commanding Task Force Guardian. We have 17 ships and some very unhappy humans. General Voss, I suggest you leave now. The Draknor general's laughter died. Admiral Williams, you are outnumbered 3-1. General, Admiral Williams replied, you are threatening a human medical facility and 600 innocent beings under our protection. Numbers do not matter anymore. What happened next became legend throughout the galaxy. The human fleet did not try to outfight the Draknor ships. They fought smarter. Captain David Roberts used his cargo ship as a missile platform. Captain Maria Santos turned her destroyer into a ramming weapon. Every human ship became something the Draknor had never seen before, utterly fearless. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 2 Draknor cruisers were destroyed and the 3rd was crippled. The human fleet had lost 5 ships, but not one Draknor soldier set foot on Haven's Rest. As the surviving Draknor ships limped away, Admiral Williams landed at the medical station. She found Dr. Lisa Parker treating wounded Draknor soldiers alongside human casualties. Doc, Admiral Williams said, why are you helping them? They came here to kill refugees. Lisa looked up from her patient, a young Draknor pilot with a broken arm. Admiral, they are hurt, and I am a doctor. That is all that matters. The wounded Draknor pilot stared at Lisa with confusion. Why do you help me? I am your enemy, Lisa smiled gently. You were my enemy when you threatened innocent people. Now you are my patient. There is a difference. Later, as the refugee evacuation proceeded smoothly, Admiral Williams asked Lisa what she wanted as a reward for her courage. I want a bigger medical station, Lisa said, and I want it closer to the Draknor border. There are more people out there who need help. Admiral Williams shook her head in amazement. Doc, most people would ask to be transferred to somewhere safe. Lisa looked out at the refugee families boarding transport ships, finally heading to safe worlds. Admiral, safe is wherever humans decide to make their stand, and I have decided to make mine wherever people need a doctor. Word of the Battle of Haven's Rest spread quickly through both human and Draknor space. The refugees spoke of humans who came from across the galaxy to protect strangers. They told stories of human ships that fought impossible odds because abandoning the helpless was not an option. But they also told a different story. They spoke of Dr. Lisa Parker, who treated enemy wounded with the same care she gave to refugees. They described humans who fought with deadly fury when innocents were threatened, but showed mercy to defeated enemies. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humans were more complex than anyone had imagined. They were learning that loyalty to humans meant protection from any threat. But it also meant being held to a higher standard of behavior. The Draknor High Command was learning something even more important. Humans did not fight wars the way other species did. They fought them personally. General Kraxus stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at the tactical display showing his latest defeat. 3 more human colonies had successfully resisted Draknor invasion forces. Each time the humans had been outnumbered. Each time they had won. General, his aide Captain Vex reported, the High Command is questioning our strategy. They want to know why we cannot defeat a species that has been in space for less than 200 years. Kraxus growled low in his throat. The defeats were becoming embarrassing. First the medical station at Haven's Rest, then the mining world of New Cardiff, and now the disaster at the research colony on Kepler Prime. Each battle taught him something new about humans, and none of it was good news. Prepare the fleet for assault on New Montana, Kraxus ordered. This time we will not underestimate them. New Montana was a farming world with a population of 50,000 humans. It had one small defense garrison and no orbital weapons. On paper, it should be an easy victory. But Craxus was learning that human wars were never fought on paper. Colonel Ryan Mitchell walked through the wheat fields of New Montana, checking the defensive positions his people had prepared. He had only 800 soldiers to defend an entire planet. But he was not worried about the numbers. He was worried about the civilians. "Colonel," Sergeant Jennifer Hayes called from her position near the communications array. "Long-range sensors show a Draknor fleet incoming. 43 ships, including 6 heavy cruisers." Ryan nodded calmly. "Time until arrival?" 14 hours, sir." Ryan activated his personal communicator and spoke to every human on New Montana. "Attention all citizens. We have incoming hostile forces. All civilians are to proceed immediately to designated shelters. All adults with military training report to your sector commanders. This is not a drill. What happened next would have surprised most alien species, but it was perfectly normal for humans. The farmers did not panic. They had been preparing for this day since they first settled New Montana. Every adult knew how to use basic weapons. Every child knew how to operate communications equipment. Every family had emergency supplies hidden in multiple locations. Within 6 hours, 50,000 civilians had vanished into underground shelters that sensors could not detect. The Draknor would find empty buildings and quiet farms, but the farms would not stay quiet for long. Ryan met with his sector commanders in the abandoned town hall of New Hope, the colony's main settlement. "Orders from Earth Command?" asked Captain Robert Stone. "Hold the planet," Ryan replied simply. "Reinforcements are coming, but they are 3 days out." "Sir," Lieutenant Paula Garcia said, "the odds are 50 to 1 against us." Ryan smiled grimly. "Paula, those are the best odds we have had all week." The Draknor invasion began at dawn with orbital bombardment of the major settlements. General Craxus watched the destruction from his flagship and nodded with satisfaction. No species could survive that level of firepower. He was wrong again. The human settlements had been abandoned hours before the attack. The orbital bombardment destroyed empty buildings while the real defenders watched from hidden positions kilometers away. When the Draknor ground forces landed, they found ghost towns and silent farms. No resistance, no defenders, no signs of life. That should have worried them. The first attack came 3 hours after landing. A Draknor patrol investigating a barn discovered that the barn was full of explosives. The explosion could be heard for miles. The second attack came an hour later. Another patrol found that the road they were using had been mined. Half the patrol never made it home. By nightfall, General Craxus was getting reports of attacks across the entire continent, but his forces never saw their attackers. "General," Captain Vex reported, "we have lost 43 soldiers today. We have not seen a single human defender." "Impossible," Craxus snarled. "Scan for life signs." "We are, sir." The scanners show scattered groups of beings underground, but when our forces investigate, they find empty tunnels. What the Draknor did not understand was that humans had been fighting this kind of war for thousands of years. Every farmer on New Montana knew how to move without being detected. Every family had practiced disappearing into the countryside. The war continued for 6 days. The Draknor controlled the towns and the roads during daylight. But at night, the planet belonged to the humans. On the 7th day, Colonel Ryan Mitchell made a mistake. His reconnaissance team was spotted near the main Draknor base, and Ryan was captured while covering his team's escape. General Craxus was delighted. Finally, he had a human commander to interrogate. Ryan was brought to the Draknor command ship and placed in a secure cell. Craxus visited him personally, expecting to find a broken soldier ready to reveal human defensive plans. Instead, he found Ryan sitting calmly on his bunk, reading a book on farming techniques. "Colonel Mitchell," Craxus said, "you are my prisoner. Your resistance is over." Ryan looked up from his book. "General Craxus, I have heard a lot about you." The refugees from Haven's Rest had some interesting things to say. Craxus felt a flicker of annoyance. "Your planet is under our control. Your forces are scattered and hiding. Surrender now and I will be merciful to your civilians." Ryan closed his book and stood up. Even behind energy bars, he looked completely unafraid. "General, you do not control anything. You occupy some empty buildings during the day. At night you hide in your ships while my people own this world." "Your people are farmers and children," Craxus snapped. They cannot fight trained soldiers forever, Ryan smiled. General, have you ever tried to take something away from a human farmer? They are the most stubborn beings in the galaxy, and these farmers are protecting their families. Over the next 3 days, the attacks on Draknor forces increased, but now they were coordinated in ways that made Kraxus realize the truth. Colonel Mitchell was still commanding his forces from his prison cell. Somehow, Ryan was getting messages to his people and receiving reports back. The Draknor had captured the human commander, but they had not stopped him from fighting. How is he doing it? Kraxus demanded of his security chief. We do not know, General. We monitor all communications from his cell. He speaks to no one except the guards who bring his food. What the Draknor did not know was that the guards bringing Ryan's food were human civilians who had volunteered for the job. Every meal delivery included coded messages. Every conversation was carefully planned. The farmers of New Montana had become the most effective intelligence network in the sector. On the 10th day of the invasion, the human rescue fleet arrived. Admiral Sarah Chen commanded 15 ships against the 43 vessels of the Draknor invasion force. Under normal circumstances, the humans would have been destroyed quickly, but these were not normal circumstances. The humans of New Montana had spent 10 days mapping every Draknor position, learning their patrol schedules, and identifying their weaknesses. When Admiral Chen's fleet attacked, they had perfect intelligence about every enemy ship. The space battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, General Kraxus had lost 26 ships and was facing a demand for unconditional surrender. But Admiral Chen was not calling for the surrender of the Draknor fleet. She was demanding the safe return of Colonel Ryan Mitchell. General Kraxus. Admiral Chen's voice came over the communications channel. You have 1 hour to release Colonel Mitchell and withdraw from this system. After that, we stop being polite. Kraxus looked at his tactical display. He still had 17 ships to the humans' 9 remaining vessels. He could continue fighting. Then his communications officer reported something that changed everything. General, we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It is from Colonel Mitchell. The main screen showed Ryan in his prison cell looking as calm as ever. General Kraxus, Ryan said, I want to thank you for the hospitality. The food was terrible, but the conversation was educational. How are you transmitting? Kraxus demanded. Ryan held up a small device. Communications implant. Standard equipment for all human officers. I have been in contact with my forces and Admiral Chen since the day you captured me. Kraxus felt his blood turn cold. Impossible. We scanned you for technology. You scanned for Draknor technology, Ryan corrected. Human implants use completely different principles. We learned a lot about your scanning methods from your refugees. The truth hit Kraxus like a physical blow. The human colonel had never been out of contact with his forces. Every conversation, every interrogation attempt, every piece of Draknor strategy had been reported to the human defenders. The humans had been fighting with perfect intelligence for 10 days. General, Ryan continued, Admiral Chen is correct. You have 1 hour to withdraw. After that, the farmers of New Montana are going to show you why we never give up our land. Kraxus looked at his tactical display one more time. 17 ships against 9 should be easy odds. But he was fighting humans who had spent 10 days learning every weakness his forces had. He was fighting farmers who were protecting their families. He was fighting a species that treated being outnumbered as a minor inconvenience. All ships, Kraxus ordered, prepare for withdrawal. As the Draknor fleet left New Montana space, Ryan walked free from his prison cell. Admiral Chen met him at the shuttle bay with a smile. Ryan, how did you coordinate the resistance from a prison cell? Ryan grinned. Sarah, you can lock up a human soldier, but you cannot stop him from doing his job. My people never needed me to tell them how to fight. They just needed to know I had not given up on them. Admiral Chen shook her head in amazement. The Draknor are going to think twice before attacking human colonies again. Maybe, Ryan said. But General Kraxus learned something important today. When humans say we will defend something, we do not mean just the soldiers. We mean every farmer, every child, every grandmother with a kitchen knife. News of the defense of New Montana spread quickly through the galaxy. Other species marveled at the idea of an entire civilian population joining a military resistance. But the story that impressed them most was simpler. Colonel Ryan Mitchell had been captured by the enemy and locked in a secure prison cell. He had continued commanding his forces anyway. The galaxy was learning that defeating human soldiers was hard. Stopping human determination was impossible. Ambassador Helen Rogers stood before the greatest gathering of alien species in galactic history. The Great Assembly had been called to address what many delegates were calling the human problem. Representatives from over 300 worlds filled the massive chamber on the neutral world of Concordia. Helen looked out at the sea of different beings and felt the weight of her responsibility. Today would determine whether humanity became part of the galactic community or remained forever isolated on the edges of space. Honored delegates, she began, I thank you for this opportunity to address your concerns about my species. The first speaker was Elder Kithara Zenhai from the peaceful Kithara Collective. He rose slowly, his ancient form trembling with age. Ambassador Rogers, Zenhai said in his soft voice. My people have interacted with humans for 2 years now. We wish to speak of what we have seen. Helen braced herself for criticism. The Kithara were pacifists who had never fought a war in their recorded history. 57 years ago, Zenhai continued, a plague nearly destroyed our civilization. 90% of our population died. We had given up hope. The chamber was completely silent. Then humans came to our worlds. Not soldiers or diplomats, but doctors and teachers. They spent 30 years helping us rebuild. They asked for nothing in return. They saved our people. Zenhai turned to address the entire assembly. We have seen human fury in battle. We have also seen human compassion in peace. These beings fight only to protect the innocent. When the fighting ends, they heal their enemies. The next speaker was Engineer Prime Torshan of the Zenthari Technical Republic. The Zenthari were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced science and their pride in their achievements. The Zenthari wished to speak of human capability, Torshan announced. 18 months ago, our star began dying. Our greatest scientists said we had 5 years before our system became uninhabitable. We began evacuating our homeworld. Helen had heard about this. The dying star crisis had been front-page news across human space. Human scientists arrived 3 weeks later. Torshan continued. They looked at our data and said they could save our star. We laughed. Our science was thousands of years ahead of theirs. The Zenthari engineer's voice carried a note of wonder. It took them 4 months. They used techniques we had never considered, combined technologies in ways we thought impossible. Our star is now stable for another 1,000,000 years. Torshan faced the assembly. Humans do not just think differently than other species. They refuse to accept that anything is impossible. This makes them dangerous but also valuable beyond measure. General Kraxus of the Draknor Empire rose next. Helen felt tension spread through the chamber. The Draknor had fought humans in dozens of battles. The Draknor Empire wishes to speak truth about humans, Kraxus said, his voice carrying across the chamber. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Murmurs of agreement came from the military-minded species. But, Kraxus continued, raising his voice, they are not dangerous in the way you think. The chamber fell silent again. Humans do not fight for conquest or glory. They fight only when innocents are threatened. But when they do fight, they fight with a fury that burns stars. Kraxus looked directly at Helen. I have lost more battles to humans than to any other species, but I have also learned more about honor from them than from any other enemy. The Draknor general turned back to the assembly. Humans treat defeated enemies with respect. They protect refugees who are not their own people. They will die for strangers without hesitation. These are not the actions of a dangerous species. These are the actions of a species we should all hope to become. Helen stared at Kraxus in amazement. The last thing she had expected was support from the Draknor military. The debate continued for hours. Some species expressed fear of human military capabilities. Others worried about human expansion. But slowly a pattern emerged. Every species that had actually dealt with humans spoke in their favor. It was the species that had only heard rumors and reports that feared humanity. When the debate ended, Chancellor Vex Prima of the Galactic Council called for the final vote on human membership. The question before this assembly is simple, Vex Prima announced. Should humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that membership entails? The vote was not even close. 237 species voted in favor. Only 43 voted against. As the results were announced, Helen felt tears run down her cheeks. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. But as the celebration began, Alarms started sounding throughout the assembly hall. "Emergency alert," came the announcement. "Long-range sensors have detected massive fleet movement in the dark nebula. Unknown vessels approaching inhabited systems." Chancellor Vex Prima called for immediate order. "All military commanders report to the Emergency Council chamber. We may have a new threat to deal with." Helen joined the emergency session, where Admiral Patricia Williams represented human military forces alongside generals and admirals from dozens of species. The intelligence briefing was terrifying. The fleet approaching from the dark nebula consists of over 5,000 ships, reported Intelligence Chief Morketh. "The vessels use technology we have never seen before. Initial scans suggest they are extremely advanced." "Any communication attempts?" Admiral Williams asked. "None," Morketh replied. "They have ignored all attempts at contact. Their course will take them through 17 inhabited systems." General Kraxus studied the tactical display. "The ship configurations are unfamiliar, but the formation suggests military purpose. This looks like an invasion fleet." Admiral Williams turned to Helen. "Ambassador, what is Earth's position on this threat?" Helen did not hesitate. "If innocent beings are in danger, humanity will help defend them. We stand with the Council." Chancellor Vex Prima looked around the room. "All in favor of joint military response to this threat?" The vote was unanimous, but as the military leaders planned their response, more disturbing news arrived. "Chancellor," Morketh reported, "we have identified the approaching fleet. According to ancient records, these are Void Seeker ships." The chamber fell silent. Every species had legends of the Void Seekers, the ancient beings who had once ruled most of the galaxy before mysteriously disappearing thousands of years ago. The legends say they enslaved entire civilizations, Chancellor Vex Prima said quietly. "They were said to be immortal, with technology beyond anything we could imagine." Admiral Williams studied the intelligence reports. "Legends or not, they are heading for inhabited worlds with 5,000 warships. That makes them our problem." General Kraxus nodded agreement. "What do we know about their capabilities?" Morketh activated a holographic display. "Very little. The ancient records describe weapons that could destroy planets and mind control technology that could enslave entire populations." Helen felt cold fear in her stomach. "How long until they reach the first inhabited system?" 6 days, Morketh replied. Admiral Williams was already making plans. "How many ships can we assemble?" "Every member species is mobilizing," Chancellor Vex Prima said. "We estimate 800 ships available for immediate deployment." 800 against 5,000, General Kraxus mused. "I have faced worse odds." Helen looked at him in surprise. "When?" Kraxus smiled grimly. "Every time I fought humans." As the emergency session continued, Helen realized that humanity was about to face its greatest test. They had just been accepted into the galactic community, and now that community was under threat from an ancient enemy. But she also realized something else. For the first time in galactic history, all the major species were working together. The Draknor Empire was coordinating with the peaceful Cathara. The proud Zenthari were sharing technology with species they had never trusted before. And at the center of this unprecedented cooperation were the humans, the newest members of the galactic community. The species that had been alone in space for less than 2 centuries were about to become the glue that held the galaxy together. Captain Steve Anderson of the UES Guardian received his orders while conducting a routine patrol near the outer rim. The message was brief but clear. "All human ships report to Rally Point Gamma 7. Prepare for major fleet action against unknown hostiles. This is not a drill." Steve looked at his crew and saw the same determination he felt. They had joined the galactic community just hours ago. Now it was time to prove they belonged. "Navigation. Set course for Gamma 7 maximum speed," Steve ordered. "Communication, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the Guardian is ready for whatever comes next." As human ships across the galaxy changed course to join the largest fleet in galactic history, Helen Rogers prepared for the most important speech of her career. Tomorrow, she would address the combined fleet before they departed to face the Void Seekers. She would have to find words that would inspire beings from 300 different worlds to fight together against an enemy from their darkest legends. But as she looked out at the stars, Helen smiled. She was going to tell them about humanity. And humanity never backed down from a fight when innocence needed protection. The galaxy was about to learn what humans meant when they talked about standing together. Admiral Mark Johnson stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, flagship of the human deep space fleet, watching as 5,000 Voidseeker ships approached the Kepler system. The ancient enemy had awakened after sleeping for millennia, and they had come to reclaim their empire. "Admiral," Communications Officer Lieutenant Sarah Davis reported, "We are receiving the Voidseeker ultimatum." The main screen flickered to life, showing a being that looked almost human but wrong in subtle ways. Its eyes were too bright, its smile too wide, and when it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that made everyone on the bridge feel uncomfortable. "Lesser species," the being said. "I am Overlord Zethkar of the Voidseekers. We have returned to claim what was always ours. You will surrender immediately and submit to our rule, or you will be destroyed. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your will cannot resist us. You are children playing with toys." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. "Admiral," Tactical Officer Commander Robert Hayes said quietly, "long-range scans confirm the intelligence reports. Their ships are using technology we have never seen. Energy readings are off the charts." Admiral Johnson studied the tactical display. The combined galactic fleet had managed to assemble 1,200 ships, including vessels from every major species. It was the largest fleet in recorded history. It was also outnumbered more than 4-1 by enemies using impossible technology. "Open a channel to all fleet commanders," Johnson ordered. Within moments, the communication screen showed the faces of military leaders from across the galaxy. General Kraxis of the Draknor Empire, Admiral Thesh of the Valari Defense Force, Commander Zentai of the Cathora Collective, and dozens of others. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all species," Johnson began. "You all heard the same ultimatum I did. The Voidseekers expect us to surrender without a fight." General Kraxis spoke first. "Admiral Johnson, my tactical analysis suggests we are facing technology thousands of years ahead of our own. A direct engagement would result in total defeat." "The Zenthari Republic agrees," added Engineer Admiral Torbex. "Their energy weapons appear capable of destroying our largest ships with single hits." Johnson nodded calmly. "I understand your concerns. The enemy has superior numbers, superior technology, and thousands of years of experience. Under normal circumstances, this would be hopeless." He paused, looking at each alien face on the screen. "But these are not normal circumstances, because for the first time in galactic history, every species is fighting together, and for the first time in their long existence, the Voidseekers are fighting humans." Admiral Thesh leaned forward. "Admiral Johnson, what do you propose?" Johnson activated the fleet tactical display. "The Voidseekers expect us to meet them in traditional battle formation. Large fleets attacking in predictable patterns. That is how wars have been fought for thousands of years." He highlighted several areas on the display. "Humans do not fight traditional wars. We fight to win, using whatever advantages we can find. And I have found several advantages." Johnson pointed to the Kepler system's asteroid belt. "First, the Voidseekers are overconfident. They have not updated their tactics in millennia, because they have never needed to. They expect enemies to be afraid of them." He highlighted the system's gas giant and its moons. "Second, they are fighting in a system we have studied for months. Every asteroid, every gravitational field, every radiation source has been mapped by human science teams. Finally," he indicated the positions of human ships scattered throughout the fleet. "Third, they have never fought humans before. They do not know what we are capable of when protecting innocents." General Kraxis studied the tactical display. "What do you have in mind, Admiral?" Johnson smiled grimly. "General, have you ever seen humans fight when they are truly angry?" The battle began exactly as the Voidseekers expected. The galactic fleet formed traditional battle lines and advanced toward the enemy. Ancient weapons fired with power that turned space itself into burning plasma. Galactic ships exploded under the incredible assault. Overlord Zethkar watched the slaughter from his command ship with satisfaction. "Pathetic. These children learned nothing in our absence. Signal the slave ships to prepare for boarding operations." But something was wrong. The galactic fleet was retreating, but not in panic. They were withdrawing in perfect order, drawing the Voidseeker fleet deeper into the system. "Overlord," his tactical officer reported, "the enemy is reforming behind the fourth planet. Should we pursue?" Zethkar considered. The retreat looked like standard military doctrine. "Withdraw to a defensive position and make another stand." "Yes, destroy them quickly. We have other systems to conquer." The Void Seeker fleet advanced past the asteroid belt, past the gas giant's moons, directly into the trap Admiral Johnson had been preparing. Now, Johnson transmitted to all ships. What happened next had never been seen before in galactic warfare. The asteroid belt exploded. Not from weapons fire, but from thousands of mining charges placed by human engineers over the previous weeks. Chunks of rock traveling at incredible speed slammed into Void Seeker ships that had no shields configured for solid projectiles. The gas giant's moons revealed themselves to be hollow. Human engineering teams had been working inside them for months, turning entire moons into massive weapons platforms. Energy beams lanced out from concealed positions, striking Void Seeker ships from angles they had never expected. But the real surprise came from the human ships themselves. Lieutenant Sarah Davis piloted her fighter directly at the Void Seeker command ship, ignoring the energy beams trying to destroy her. At the last second, she ejected and let her ship impact the enemy vessel at full speed. The explosion barely scratched the massive alien ship, but it created enough of a distraction. For the second part of her mission, the fighter had been carrying a boarding pod filled with human Marines. Sergeant First Class Tom Bradley led his team through the breach in the Void Seeker hull, fighting their way toward the ship's control center. The aliens they encountered were physically impressive and carried weapons that could vaporize human soldiers with single shots, but the Void Seekers had never fought beings who treated impossible odds as a minor inconvenience. Bradley to all teams. Tom transmitted as his Marines fought through the alien ship. Remember, these things have been bullying the galaxy for thousands of years. Time to show them what happens when they mess with our friends. The fighting inside the Void Seeker ships was brutal. The aliens were stronger, faster, and better armed than humans. But humans had something the Void Seekers had never encountered. They had stubbornness that bordered on insanity. When Corporal Lisa Martinez ran out of ammunition, she used her combat knife. When Private Mike Foster lost his weapon, he used his hands. When the Void Seekers tried to use their mind control technology, they discovered that humans were too angry to be controlled. Impossible, Overlord Zethkar snarled as reports flooded in from across his fleet. No species has ever resisted our mental dominance. His tactical officer was frantically working his controls. Overlord, the humans are not just resisting. They are turning our own weapons against us. They are learning our technology faster than we can adapt to their tactics. On 17 different ships, human boarding parties had fought their way to critical systems, but instead of destroying them, they were doing something the Void Seekers had never expected. They were studying them. Dr. Susan Mills, now serving as Chief Science Officer aboard the UES Defiant, received data transmissions from every human boarding party. Admiral Johnson, she reported excitedly, the Marines are sending us complete scans of Void Seeker technology. Their weapon systems, their propulsion, their shields, everything. Johnson nodded. How long until we can counter their advantages? Give me 2 hours, sir. Johnson looked at the tactical display. The battle was going better than expected, but they were still outnumbered and outgunned. Susan, you have 1 hour. What Dr. Mills accomplished in the next hour became legend throughout human space. Working with engineering teams from every species in the fleet, she reverse-engineered technology that the Void Seekers had spent millennia perfecting. But she did not just copy it. She improved it. Admiral, Dr. Mills reported, I can give you weapons that will punch through their shields and defenses that will stop their energy beams. But the modifications will only work on human ships. Johnson understood immediately, because human technology is more adaptable. Exactly, sir. Other species design for perfection. Humans design for flexibility. We can modify our systems faster than they can adapt to the changes. Admiral Johnson opened communications to the entire fleet. All non-human vessels withdraw to defensive positions. Human ships prepare for final assault. What followed was the most one-sided battle in galactic history. Human ships, now armed with modified Void Seeker weapons and protected by reverse-engineered shields, tore through the enemy fleet like knives through paper. Every shot was perfectly targeted. Every maneuver was calculated to maximum effect. But the Void Seekers were learning something even more disturbing. The humans were not trying to destroy them all. Admiral, Communications Officer Davis reported, we are receiving surrender requests from 43 Void Seeker vessels. Johnson nodded. Accept their surrenders. Take their crews prisoner and treat them according to galactic humanitarian standards. Overlord Zethkar could not believe what he was seeing. His ancient empire, rulers of the galaxy for thousands of years, was being defeated by beings who had barely learned to fly between stars. Worse, the humans were showing mercy to defeated enemies. "Overlord," his communications officer said, "the human admiral is requesting to speak with you." Zethkar activated the communication system, expecting to face a gloating conqueror. Instead, he saw Admiral Johnson standing calmly on his bridge. "Overlord Zethkar," Johnson said respectfully, "your fleet is defeated. I'm offering you the same terms I offered your other commanders. Surrender now and your surviving crews will be treated with dignity." Zethkar stared at the human in confusion. "Why do you offer mercy? We came to enslave your species." Johnson was quiet for a moment. "Because that is what humans do. We fight when we have to, but we do not kill unnecessarily. Your war is over, Overlord. It does not have to end with more death." For the first time in his long existence, Zethkar felt something he had never experienced: respect for an enemy. "Admiral Johnson," the Void Seeker Overlord said slowly, "I surrender my fleet to your forces." As the last Void Seeker ships powered down their weapons, Admiral Johnson turned to address the combined galactic fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Johnson. The threat is over. The Void Seekers have been defeated. We are going home." But even as the fleet celebrated their impossible victory, Johnson knew the real work was just beginning. The galaxy had just learned that humans could defeat any enemy, no matter how advanced or numerous. Now they had to learn what humans did with victory, and that lesson would be even more important than learning what humans did in war. 5 years had passed since the defeat of the Void Seekers. Captain James Anderson, son of the late Captain Steve Anderson, stood on the bridge of the UES Hope as it patrolled the Outer Rim territories. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. "Captain," Communications Officer Lieutenant Emma Clark reported, "we are receiving a distress signal from the Kepler-9 system. Multiple ships in distress, unknown cause." James studied the tactical display. Kepler-9 was a peaceful trade system inhabited by 3 different species who had learned to work together after the war. "Time to arrival at maximum speed." 4 hours, sir," replied Navigator Lieutenant David Kim. "Make it 3, James ordered, "and send word to nearby ships. If there are people in trouble, we help them." The response was immediate. Within minutes, ships from 6 different species were changing course to assist. The UES Hope would not arrive alone. This had become normal throughout the galaxy. When distress calls went out, the response was swift and overwhelming. No one fought alone anymore. As the Hope raced through hyperspace, James thought about how much had changed since his father's time. Captain Steve Anderson had died during the Void Seeker War, ramming his ship into an enemy vessel to save a refugee transport. James had been serving as a lieutenant on another ship when it happened. The memorial service had been attended by representatives from every species in the galaxy. Even former enemies had come to honor the human captain who had died protecting strangers. "Captain," Lieutenant Clark reported, "we are receiving more details about the Kepler-9 situation. It appears to be a natural disaster, not an attack. Solar flare activity is disrupting all technology in the system." James nodded. Natural disasters were often more dangerous than enemy fleets. Technology failed, communications went down, and people died while help struggled to reach them. "Any word from the other responding ships?" "Yes, sir. Admiral Kraxis is commanding a Draknor rescue fleet. Estimated arrival in 4 hours. The Valari medical ship Mercy's Light will arrive in 3.5 hours. The Zenthari are sending 2 engineering vessels." James smiled. Admiral Kraxis had become one of humanity's closest allies after the war. The former enemy now worked with human forces on dozens of joint operations. The old Draknor general had learned to respect human determination, and humans had learned to value Draknor loyalty. "Captain," Science Officer Dr. Patricia Wells reported, "I am reading massive electromagnetic interference throughout the Kepler-9 system. The solar flares are unlike anything in our records. Ships caught in the interference zones will lose all power." "Survivors?" "Unknown, sir. We cannot get clear readings through the interference." James considered their options. Standard procedure would be to wait for the electromagnetic storm to pass, then mount a rescue operation. But standard procedure meant people might die while they waited. "Dr. Wells, can we modify our shields to protect against the electromagnetic interference?" "Possibly, sir. But it would drain our power systems rapidly. We might lose life support. How long could we operate in the interference zone? Maybe 2 hours before we risk losing all power. James looked at his crew. He saw the same determination in their faces that he felt in his heart. These were people who had volunteered for deep space patrol duty, knowing they might face exactly this kind of situation. "Do it," James ordered. "Modify the shields and take us in." The UES Hope entered the Kepler 9 system, just as another massive solar flare erupted from the star. The electromagnetic pulse washed over their ship like a wave of invisible fire. "Shields holding," Dr. Wells reported. "But I am reading massive power drain. We have 90 minutes before critical systems start failing." "Sensor sweep," James ordered. "Find those ships." Lieutenant Kim worked his controls frantically. "Captain, I have got 17 ships dead in space. No power, no life support. I am reading life signs on all of them." "How many people?" "Over 3,000 beings from 8 different species." James felt the familiar weight of command settle on his shoulders. 3,000 lives depending on decisions he made in the next few minutes. Can we evacuate them? "Not all of them, sir," Lieutenant Clark said. "Our maximum evacuation capacity is maybe 500 beings." James opened communications to the other rescue ships still approaching the system. "Admiral Craxus, Captain Anderson here. We have 17 disabled ships with 3,000 survivors. I need your arrival time." Craxus's voice came through the interference with static. "Captain Anderson, we are still 3 hours out. Can you maintain position until we arrive?" "Negative, Admiral. We have maybe 60 minutes of power left in this interference zone." There was a pause. Then Craxus spoke again, his voice carrying the respect that had grown between former enemies. "Captain, evacuate who you can and withdraw to safe distance. We will retrieve the others when we arrive." James looked at his crew again. They all knew the math. In 3 hours, most of those people would be dead from cold and lack of oxygen. "Dr. Wells," James said, "what if we transfer all available power to the rescue transporters? Strip power from everything except life support and engines?" "Sir, that would give us maybe 20 minutes to complete all evacuations before we lose power ourselves." 20 minutes to save 3,000 people? "It would be close, sir. Very close." James activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We have 3,000 beings in immediate danger. We are going to save all of them. This operation will push our ship and our crew to the limit. I need everyone to be perfect for the next 20 minutes. He paused, thinking of his father. "Remember, we are not just representing humanity today. We are representing everything the galaxy has become. No one gets left behind." What followed was the most intensive rescue operation in galactic history. Every transporter on the Hope worked at maximum capacity. Engineering teams rerouted power from systems that were not immediately critical. Medical teams prepared to treat beings from 8 different species. "Captain," Lieutenant Clark reported, "we have evacuated the first ship, 420 beings safely aboard." "Next ship," James ordered. The process continued with mechanical precision. Ship after ship was evacuated as the Hope's power system slowly failed. Emergency lighting came on as main power was diverted to the transporters. Life support switched to backup systems. 15 minutes remaining, Dr. Wells warned. "How many ships left?" James asked. 4 ships, approximately 600 beings. James made a decision that would have made his father proud. "Transfer all remaining power to transporters. Life support, navigation, everything." "Sir," Dr. Wells protested, "if we lose all power in this interference zone, we will not be able to restart our engines. We will be stranded." "Dr. Wells, there are 600 people out there who will die if we do not save them. We are not leaving without them." The final 4 ships were evacuated in a desperate race against time. As the last survivors materialized in the Hope's cargo bays, every system on the ship went dark. Emergency power lasted just long enough for James to send one final transmission. "Admiral Craxus, this is Captain Anderson. All survivors evacuated. Hope is dead in space. See you when you get here." The ship drifted in the electromagnetic storm, powerless but victorious. In the cargo bays and corridors, 3,000 beings from 8 different species huddled together, sharing warmth and hope. 3 hours later, Admiral Craxus's fleet arrived to find the Hope floating helplessly in space. But as the Draknor Admiral coordinated the recovery operation, he smiled with satisfaction. Every single being in the disabled ships had been saved. "Admiral," his aide reported, "Captain Anderson is requesting permission to come aboard." Send him to my quarters immediately. When James arrived, Craxus was waiting with 2 cups of Earth coffee, a drink the Draknor general had developed a taste for during joint operations. Captain Anderson, Craxus said, that was either the bravest or most foolish thing I have ever seen. James accepted the coffee gratefully. Admiral, my father once told me that the difference between bravery and foolishness is whether it works out in the end. Craxus laughed, a sound that would have terrified his enemies during the old wars. Your father was a wise being. Tell me, Captain, do you know what the other species call incidents like this? No, sir. They call them typical human behavior. 6 months later, Dr. Lisa Parker stood in the new Galactic Medical Center on Concordia, coordinating relief efforts for a dozen worlds affected by a plague outbreak. The center was the largest medical facility in known space, staffed by doctors from every major species. But it was Dr. Parker who ran it, because the galaxy had learned that humans excelled at organizing impossible tasks. Dr. Parker, her assistant, a young Cathera named Shenlo, reported, "The vaccine distribution is complete. All affected worlds have received sufficient supplies." Lisa looked out the window at the medical center's main plaza, where representatives from dozens of species worked together to solve problems that had once seemed impossible. Thank you, Shenlo. Any new emergencies? Just the usual, Doctor. 3 natural disasters, 2 famine situations, and a request from the Outer Rim colonies for additional medical supplies. Lisa smiled. Just the usual would have overwhelmed the galaxy's medical resources 5 years ago. Now it was handled as routine business. Schedule the relief missions and make sure we have adequate staff for each situation. As Shenlo hurried away to organize 3 major relief operations, Lisa reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy now responded to crises with speed and efficiency that would have been impossible before the war. But the real change was deeper than efficiency. The galaxy had learned to care about strangers. On Earth, in the halls of United Earth Government, Ambassador Helen Rogers prepared for her final address to the Galactic Council. She had served as humanity's chief diplomat for 8 years, helping to build the alliance that now protected hundreds of worlds. Madam Ambassador, her aide reported, the Council is ready for your farewell address. Helen walked to the podium in the great assembly hall, looking out at the faces of beings who had once been strangers and were now friends. Some had been enemies. Others had been afraid of humanity's potential for violence. All of them had learned what humans meant when they talked about loyalty. Honored colleagues, Helen began, when I first addressed this assembly 8 years ago, many of you wondered what humanity would bring to the galactic community. She paused, looking at the faces of species who now worked together in ways that had once seemed impossible. I think we have our answer. Humans brought stubbornness. We brought the radical idea that no problem is unsolvable if enough beings work together to solve it. Laughter rippled through the assembly, the kind of warm laughter shared between old friends. We brought the belief that protecting innocence is worth any sacrifice. We brought the conviction that former enemies can become trusted allies. Helen's voice grew serious. But most importantly, we brought the knowledge that strength without compassion is meaningless. That the greatest victories are not won on battlefields, but in the quiet moments when we choose to help instead of harm. The assembly fell silent. The galaxy is a different place than it was 8 years ago. We have faced ancient enemies and natural disasters. We have seen species that had fought for centuries learn to trust each other. We have built something that has never existed before. A true community of worlds. Helen looked directly at the camera that would broadcast her words throughout known space. To the humans watching this broadcast, remember that you are not just citizens of Earth or members of your colonies. You are guardians of this galaxy. Every day, beings across hundreds of worlds go to sleep knowing that if trouble comes, humans will come to help them. She turned back to the assembly. To my colleagues from other species, remember that loyalty to humans is earned through our actions, not our words. We have shown you what we will do to protect innocence. We have proven that we will sacrifice everything to defend those under our care. Helen's final words carried across the galaxy with quiet conviction. The age of isolation is over. The age of conquest is finished. This is the age of cooperation, and humanity is proud to be part of building a better galaxy for everyone. As the assembly rose in standing ovation, Helen smiled with satisfaction. She had kept her promise to show the galaxy what humans could accomplish when they worked together with others. Far on the edge of known space, a small exploration ship detected something that had not been seen for decades, a new species taking its first tentative steps into space. Captain Jennifer Hayes, granddaughter of the sergeant who had served with Colonel Mitchell on New Montana, read the sensor reports with excitement. A new species, just beginning to explore their solar system, she reported to Earth Command. Preliminary scans suggest they are peaceful and curious. The response from Earth was immediate and predictable. Captain Hayes, you are authorized to make first contact. Standard procedures apply. Offer friendship, medical assistance, and protection if needed. Captain Hayes smiled as she prepared the contact package. Food, medical supplies, basic technology, and a simple message recorded in the mathematical language that all species eventually discovered. Greetings from the Galactic Council. We are your neighbors among the stars. We come in peace and friendship. If you need help, we will provide it. If you seek knowledge, we will share it. If you face danger, we will stand with you. The message was signed by representatives from dozens of species, but it carried a special addendum. From the humans of Earth and her colonies, we offer our protection and friendship. No one fights alone. No one suffers alone. Welcome to the galaxy. As the UES Discovery approached the new species' homeworld, Captain Hayes thought about the stories her grandmother had told her. Stories of humans fighting impossible odds to protect strangers. Stories of enemies becoming friends. Stories of a galaxy learning to work together. Now she was part of that story. The young species that received humanity's first contact message would later write in their histories that they knew immediately they were meeting something special, not because of the humans' technology or their military power, but because of a simple promise that would define their relationship with the galaxy. If you ever need help, call us. We will come. It was the same promise humanity had made to every species they had met. It was the same promise they had never broken. As the Discovery established orbit around the new world, Captain Hayes opened communications and spoke the words that had become humanity's signature across the galaxy. We are here to help. What do you need? The galaxy had learned that loyalty to humans was not about fear or obligation. It was about knowing that somewhere among the stars, there were beings who would sacrifice everything to make sure everyone got to go home safe. And in a galaxy full of dangers and uncertainties, that knowledge made all the difference.